Think Tank, it's me, Eric, one half the Think Tank. We are here on a St. Patty's Day weekend. Shout out to Brian McCloskey. Uh, I know he got it in last night. It's also March Madness, so in the midst of all this excitement, I'm hoping you have time to sit down and watch this next segment of the 52 Ways Project. This one, I think, whether you're an investor, consumer, okay, maybe you're not any of those, but as a human being, right, life will throw you curveballs, and so you got to be ready for anything to throw at you in regards to emergencies. And so your private banking policy is a wonderful, absolutely fantastic place to keep funds in preparation for those emergencies that are going to happen. And so today I want to take you through a case study. I'm using a hypothetical family here. The Diaz brothers is what I call them. They are small business owners, very successful at what they do. All have taken different means, though, of setting up their personal economy and how money flows through their system. And so, one thing that is common throughout, though, we're going to take a situation that they are looking at as an emergency and see how they each handle it. Okay, using their financial system that they have in place. So in all cases, there is a lawsuit, okay, lawsuit that has been filed, and in each case, they have to figure out how they're going to deal with this lawsuit. Now, they could take the route. They're all going to use a lawyer, and to get a lawyer is going to cost $10,000. Okay, so they need $10,000 on hand to pay this lawyer, because without it, they will be vulnerable. Everything they've worked so hard for in their business is put up at risk, is vulnerable. And so 99.9% chance once they get that lawyer for 10 grand, not going to happen. So let's take a look at how each brother is able to come up with that 10 grand. All right. So we're going to assume here that for the 10 grand, none of the brothers have kept that money sitting in a bank, stagnant in a dormant asset. Okay, each of them is very good at what they do, so therefore any lump sum of money that they have is essentially going to be put back into the business. All right, so because of how the low interest of banks are these days. So let's look at James. James is 35 years old, and let's go to the credit card. His only source of finding that and attaining that $10,000 is in a credit card. So we're going to look at 5 points of 5 dimensions of these funding sources, and we're going to look at the pros and cons. And so when you're accessing your credit card, very accessible. So it's a positive. James can put it on any number of credit cards. He can start a new credit card. So that money is very accessible from his credit card source of funding. Interest rate, though, is a doozy. He's looking at 15%, depending on which source he decides to go with of his credit cards. On average, he's paying about 15% on those cards, and so interest rate is not very favorable. Okay, taxes. Really no impact here with taxes with a credit card, and so we're going to say that's favorable. Penalties and control. With a credit card, you are subjected to their rules, and you have to pay a payment every month without fail, or else it will absolutely affect your credit report, and potentially you get sent to collections agencies. Has ripple effects down the line, and all sorts of penalty fees and such. Okay, and then opportunity costs. Obviously, the money that he's paying in interest could be rerouted back into his business. So the opportunity cost that he could have used that money for, he's actually paying opportunity cost there because of paying off that credit card and the interest that goes along with it. All right, moving on to Jacob. Jacob is 40 years old, and he's using his 401k that he actually built up in a corporation that he worked for. And so access to a 401k policy, to a 401k loan is you're playing by the government's rules. And so he's got to go to the government and say, "Mother, can I please get access to my money?" Right? And the government might say yes, no. Is it a hardship? All these different questions are going to be asked. And so if he does not comply, he's going to be paying penalties. He's going to, there's going to be subjected to taxes, all sorts of things. All right, so that's a no. Interest. Now with 401k loans, you are assessed prime rate plus 1 or 2%. It's pretty low right now, so we're looking at 4 to 5%. Not too bad. So those are favorable interest rates for 401k loans. Taxes. Can we say double taxation? Here's the deal. Anytime you take a 401k loan, you are essentially taking money out, and at which point, when you pay that money back, it's already, it's taxed when it comes out. When you pay the money back, You have to essentially, let's just say Jacob is in the 25% tax bracket. So if he's paying back $100, he really has to pay back $125 of after-tax money just for it to equate to $100 that he took out. Okay? Not to mention when Jacob turns 60, 65 and he takes the money out, he's going to get taxed again. So double taxation there. Not a good situation anyone should be in. Okay? Penalties and control. Again, this goes along the lines of the government pulling the essentially writing the rules for your 401k, and so there are penalties. You are not the one in control. Heaven forbid you're at a job and you have an emergency situation, and you get a loan from your 401k, and you get fired or quit. Now you've got to pay that loan back in its entirety within 60 days, or be subjected to penalties, taxed, and all sorts of things. And so again, Uncle Sam is controlling those terms there. All right. Let's see here. Opportunity cost. The idea that you're taking money out of your 401k means that money is no longer there to work for you, assuming it's working for you in the market, right? So you are now taking those money from those shares. You're taking the money from those shares, that 401k, and you're using it to pay off an emergency. And so again, there's an opportunity cost there that you absolutely have to pay for that. All right. Finally, the banking policy. Gonna wrap this up. You absolutely have access. Those of you who are think tankers have a policy, and so you know that when you access that money from your policy, there's no questions asked. There's no mother may I. There's no what is it for? What's your credit score? Nothing like that. It's your money, your terms. Okay. Interest. Around about 5%, so we're not talking about the 15% that you pay on a credit card, and so that interest rate is going to be about comparable to what you'd find out there with where interest rates are in our interest rate environment. So low interest rate environment right now, so therefore policy loans are going to have low interest rate, around 5%. Okay. Taxes. Access to money. Your money grows tax-free. The access is tax-free. Done deal. Okay. Penalties, control. No penalties with taking money from your policy, right? Taking a loan against your policy. You are in full control. Your loan, your terms. Enough said. Last but not least, this is my favorite. Opportunity cost. There is no opportunity cost lost with a policy, simply because your money stays in the policy, continues to grow. If you have an emergency, you are borrowing against the policy. So Juan, 45 years old, he came upon this banking policy about 5 years ago in this case, and he has credit cards. He does have a 401k that he no longer contributes to that he could have tapped into, but he also has this banking policy. And so for him, it was all about having options. And that's what the wonderful, beautiful thing that we have here. Those of us who are think tankers, who have a policy, the lesson to be had here is that you have options now, options that you didn't have before probably, and that is the banking policy. Okay, everything else that we've talked about, it has its drawbacks, its limitations. As a matter of fact, Jacob might even consider using the credit card just because he doesn't like the idea of taking money from his 401k and losing out on the opportunity cost. So the situation will dictate what you choose, but the fact is you have options. And so that's the takeaway from this lesson, this case study, and hopefully you all got a lot out of this. Again, I'm Eric. Think tankers to your prosperity. Take care.